Yeah, look, I've been saying for a long time, I think the Australian NBL is the Premier League in the world, and players wouldn't look out of place in the NBA. Now, we can send a lot of our kids over there and they might star in the NBA, but they definitely wouldn't look out of place. They'd be able to hold their own. And, you know, it's getting more and more recognised throughout the world. Obviously, with LaMelo doing what he's done, Shane Short-Tate, players Jock Landale, Paddy Mills, what they're doing is just been really good to put Australia on the basketball map internationally.
This is Legends with Bevo. Thanks to Odyssey, Renelec Electrical Services, and Anytime Fitness Glenelg. And now, here's your host, Bevo.
Two-time NBL championship player and 449 NBL games. What a legend. Warrick Giddey, great to have you on Legends with Bevo.
Oh, Bevo, it's an absolute privilege and pleasure to be here, mate.
Now, let's talk about your career. And this segment, our very first segment, is called I Think I'm in Love. Back as a young fella, where did you sort of get that passion for basketball? And was it through sort of watching TV? Did you have an idol on TV or someone that you followed? Or, where did you get that real love for wanting to play basketball?
Unbelievable story in a sense. I grew up playing rugby league, grew up in New South Wales in a town called Colcliffe on the south coast, was about 30 minutes south of Sydney, and right on the coast, and had a mountains out the front door and the ocean out the back door. So I grew up in surf life saving, rugby league, tried cricket, tried most sports, and I was lucky in grade 6 at East Corrimal Public School. One of the teachers was into basketball, and I was naturally the tallest kid at school. So he grabbed me and tried to teach me the game. And we only had netball courts, so there was no rings with backboards. There was no basketball markings. And this is back in about 78, 79. Yeah, I was lucky enough. I made the South Coast team, my first attempt at basketball. And unfortunately got cut a few weeks later because the best player had appendicitis and he was coming back into the team. So, it was just one of those things. Height sort of dominated. And as I said, I was lucky enough to have a teacher that showed me the ropes and got me involved in the game.
Now, you just touched on it about the rugby side of things. How did you decide to sort of go from playing rugby to basketball? And was there any sort of feeling where you sort of feel as though, I wish I'd sort of taken up rugby, or are you sort of happy how things turned out?
Not really. I think the body was really preserved by getting out of the rugby code. So, I grew up like New South Wales, like Victorians. Rugby league was our number one game there. Like Aussie rules is down here for Victorians. And, I played it from a real young age with my brothers. Loved it. Was very, very passionate about it. And then come year 12, I thought, how can I get some legitimate days off school? So throughout year 12, I tried out for all the rugby union teams, the rugby league team and all the basketball teams. And had an amazing run where I didn't get cut the whole year, and then it ended up making the Australian Rugby League team in the two test series against New Zealand. Was selected for the Australian Rugby Union schoolboys touring side to go to England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales on an unbelievable six-week tour of the UK. And at the same time, I was in the basketball team in the Australian under-21 side. So I had a few decisions to make, whether to stay into the basketball, go to rugby league, which there was a lot more money. And obviously at that stage, in 85, rugby union was totally amateur. So I sort of ruled out the rugby union. I'd accepted a scholarship to go to the Institute of Sports straight out of year 12. So when I come back from the UK tour of rugby, incidentally, Ricky Stewart was our captain of that touring squad. I came back and had a 2-week break and went straight to the Institute of Sport for basketball. And basically that was the end of my rugby league and rugby union career. And the reason being, I really wanted to make the Australian under-21 World Championship side for 1987, and that was my immediate goal, with thoughts maybe of going back to rugby league a few years later if basketball didn't keep on the up as I was expecting.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because now you touched on it earlier. Rugby back then was amateur, but now it's almost done like a 360, where basketball, unless you're playing NBA, there's not that sort of money in Australia. Whereas rugby, you're probably earning more money playing rugby than you would be playing basketball nowadays.
Oh, absolutely. You'd be spending a lot of medical bills too, I'd reckon. So as far as longevity and having the body hold up, it's probably a decision that, I'm happy with. And looking back at, maybe I was never going to play for Australia in rugby league or rugby union, and I figured my best opportunity to get to a world championship was with that Australian under-21 side. And, I was realistic enough to know that I probably was never going to be an Olympian, maybe not good enough to reach the highest in the pinnacle of Australian basketball. But, I was happy to have a longevity in the sport. I played nearly 16 seasons, and, it was probably something I wouldn't have been able to do in either of the rugby codes.
And a couple of championships to go with it, and also playing with the great Andrew Gase. there's always that argument whether Phil Smythe or Andrew Gaze are the best Australian basketballers of all time. But in my opinion, and you're probably a little bit biased to that one, but I think it's Gazy, even though Smythe is a friend, and he probably wouldn't too happy to hear me saying that. But
Well, I had the great pleasure of Phil being my institute coach in 1986 with Pat Hunt. So had great relations with Phil. He's a great bloke and what a legend of a player. But, being able to play with Andrew Gaze for 15 years, to play with the best day in, day out, I saw some amazing things by not only Andrew, Leonard Copeland, Dave Simmons, Mark Bradke, all the blokes I played with. And you see it day in, day out, and the public gets to see it once a week. So just amazed at what those guys were able to do.
And I heard from chatting last week to another mate of yours, Rupert Satwell, that you and Gazy had a bit of a secret signal back in the days when you played together with the Melbourne Tigers. Tell us about that, Woz.
Yeah, look, his dad, Lindsay, the great Lindsay, the great man, we used to call him the button hook. And Lindsay's thing was to, if I sit up a bit, was to pull your shirt, which means I'm touching the button, which means on our third option plays, Andrew would run an L cut, run along the baseline, then suddenly go back door. So I'd get a bit of foot stomping and fake that pass to the outside, and suddenly he'd go back door. So he only had to look at me, sort of half grab his shirt, and we both knew exactly what was going on.
Well, it was pretty successful.
Yeah, I mean, I just had to put the ball in the vicinity, and Andrew was so good at catching it and finishing it. He made me look really good.
All right, this next segment is called I Taught Him Everything He Knows.
I taught him everything he knows.
Now, we're speaking off air about your lad, Josh, who's doing great things in the NBA at the moment. Obviously, played some basketball this year or last year with the Adelaide 36ers, so we called him one of our own. Now, Woz, obviously, Josh is killing it over there in the NBA with OKC, and recently he was alongside LaMelo Ball and LeBron James for being the youngest man to reach 100 rebounds and 100 assists in 20 games. Unbelievable stuff.
Oh, Bevo, it's unbelievable. It's still surreal, the progress he's made, the success he's had and the opportunity he's getting. And, I sort of said to a lot of people, there'd be so many other players out there in the world that would love that opportunity that Josh had. Obviously, getting the opportunity is one thing, taking advantage is another. And, just Adelaide, the same thing, the opportunity that Jeff Van Groningen, Connor Henry and the organisation afforded him was just phenomenal on his pathway to the NBA. And to take that next step up, I really didn't know if he was going to get a lot of time. He might have got 5-10 minutes a game. Obviously, with a rebuilding team, young side, probably one of the worst sides in a sense in the league. He's been able to get an opportunity. The coaches played him. They've allowed him to make mistakes, to sort of flourish out there. And, he's having a ball. Talked to him the other day, and as I said, it's great fun. His teammates are fantastic. He loves the organisation. The coach is young. He gets on really good with him. So I think it's onwards and upwards, and so long as he and the team continue to progress and get better each week, I think he's in a really great place.
Are you surprised in terms of how well he's going at the moment? Considering he's playing in, against these big bodies, or do you sort of feel as though it just goes to show that the NBL's really come a long way in that he's able to just match it with some of these big names over there in the NBA?
Yeah, look, I've been saying for a long time, I think the Australian NBL is the Premier League in the world, and players wouldn't look out of place in the NBA. Now, we can send a lot of our kids over there and they mightn't star in the NBA, but they definitely wouldn't look out of place. They'd be able to hold their own. And, it's getting more and more recognised throughout the world. Obviously, with LaMelo doing what he's done, Jane Shorten Tate, players Jock Landale, Paddy Mills, what they're doing is just been really good to put Australia on the basketball map internationally. And I think Americans have finally woken up and realised that we play a good brand of basketball. It's different. It's not athletic as the Americans, but it's a smart brand. They're going to get 100%, and then the Aussies are tough.
And some of his passing as well was unbelievable. Did you teach him some of those moves, or were they just something that he came up with himself?
I taught him everything he knows. But, look, from a young age, I really instilled it. And obviously Josh had the luxury of being around a basketball professional player, coach, obviously in my later years. And he was with me day to day at Melbourne Tiger basketball camps. So he had that opportunity of being probably ahead of the pack at a young age. Had a better skill level. So I always made sure that come game times he would make that right decision. Now, even if his mate couldn't pass or finish the basket or finish the shot, I would still insist to make the right decision and give it to the right person in the right spot. And, as he got older and played in higher level teams and better competition, those people would be able to catch the ball and make those baskets. So it was about the decision making. As I said, the talent would get better around him and those decisions would look better. So, I was a bit worried being the father of the best player. I didn't want him to be a hog, so really at a young age, I heavily instilled pass first option in him, probably more to save me that parents didn't want to whinge and say, oh, look at the coach letting his son be a hog and dominate the play. So definitely wanted to bring his teammates, and he was fantastic at involving all of his teammates from a young age, from when I first took him and his mates at about 5 or 6 in the Wembley Primary School Wazza's team.
What a great story, mate. I just can't wait to see sort of where the future goes for him. And then obviously, you're such a proud dad too. So it's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I couldn't be prouder of what he's achieved. And, as I said, we just lay the groundwork and the foundation for him to give him that opportunity. And, at an early age, teaching him the correct footwork, the correct skills, the right decisions, teaching him about the game and really watching it unfold. So, we used to run the same offence as the Melbourne Tigers NBL, what I ran. So, that was a great learning experience for him to play as a team, to learn how to set players up, set defences up, go back doors, run different cuts, passing, the whole gamut of things in a basketball game. And, I tell kids all the time, when they get to the NBA, you can dribble the ball 50 times, pass it to no one and go one-on-one. And that's really what the game's about. But I think Josh has really showed another level to it about being unselfish and how you can bring your teammates into it. And that's one of his best attributes, making people around him better. So, I'm sort of going to keep pushing that. And, if you can do other things like shoot and score and rebound and play good defence, that'll just add to the whole package.
Hopefully let's see him keep up that great work going forward to the rest of the season. Now, let's move on to the next segment. This one's called Still Makes Me Smile. Now, looking back now on your life, what career memory still makes you really smile? And, what was it like to play with the great Andrew Gaze and under his dad, Lindsay, as well?
Unbelievable, Bevo. It was, to play with one of the best coaches of all time in Lindsay Gaze and one of the greatest players, Andrew, was, like a dream come true. And, you probably don't realise what a great time and how much fun it was until you finish and it's not there anymore. But, probably one of the best moments was 93 when we won the championship over in Perth, defeating them in Game 3. And, a lot of funny things. We'd never won in Perth. No players had ever won, no matter what other team they'd been with in the history of the NBL. So we went over there, 1-1, really up against it, no one expecting us to win. And the end of the game was really funny because back in those days you had a 1-on-1 when you got fouled. So if you missed the first free throw, you didn't get the second one. And I remember we were up by 3 and Leonard Copeland got fouled and, Andrew's hugging him and just make one Copes and it's game over. And you wouldn't believe it, as great a shooter as Leonard is, he missed the front end of a 1-on-1. And I think Andrew Vlahoff came down, shot the 3 that's historic for rolling around the ring and then doing 2 laps of the ring, falling out and jumping straight into the hands of Andrew where he was instantly fouled. And again, 4 seconds to go, we just needed to make one free throw to put the game on ice. And, Andrew went down. I remember Copeland hugging him this time saying, don't screw this up, Andrew. And rattled the first free throw in and it was game over. So from there, we were just trying not to get tech fouled. We didn't want to jump on the court too early to celebrate and we just let the clock run out. So great memories. Robert Sibley doing nude belly slides in the change room on the tile floors. That was another great memory as well.
I love hearing those sort of stories. All right, this next segment is called Moments I'd Rather Forget. Now, going back to your basketball career I mentioned earlier, 449 games for the Melbourne Tigers and the Illawarra Hawks, as well as the 2 championships. What about sort of any embarrassing moments or awkward moments through your career? Was any of those?
When I first played with the Illawarra Hawks for 2 years, I came down to Melbourne and I was a sun guy, loved the heat and in summer. And I was in bloody Keilor, freezing cold, sitting on the bench with the Hawks, not getting on. And suddenly I think sometime in the second half the coach put me on and I got fouled within about 3 seconds of being out there. And the body was totally cold. I couldn't feel myself. And I went to the free throw line and totally bricked 2 free throws. I hit the backboard twice. I didn't hit the ring. And that was one of the most embarrassing moments. But we did end up winning on a 3-point halfway shot from Don Bickett that was goaltended. So the game ended up all right. And I think the other time was in a pre-season game down in Hobart where I was inbounding the ball for the Tigers against the Hobart Devils in a practice game. And a kid come down and dacked me when I had the ball above my head. We had to throw it in. bang, down come the Dax. And,
no.
and the kid ran off. That was pretty hilarious. His mates all chipped in, and must have chipped in $1 and $2, and he made about $30 or $40 out of it. But immediately after he jacked me, he took off and out down around the courts, and obviously Andrew Gaze, Dave Simmons were on the bench, and they chased after this kid. Andrew caught him down the corridor, and he said it was the most frightening thing because he caught this 16-year-old kid and thought, now what do I do? And the troops came down, but there was no violence. There was nothing untoward, and the kid came in the change room, apologised, and Lindsay told him we better be there on our first home game with lots of mates cheering like crazy in red and black for us. And we turned up a few weeks later for, I think, our round 1 game against him, and sure enough, he was there with all of his mates cheering for the Tigers. So all ended pretty well.
What a great story, and no doubt the boys like Gazy and Copeland that would have loved that one as well.
Yeah, they thought it was hilarious. I was probably the one that took it in the right vein. The rest of them were pretty angry and thought I'd been embarrassed and disrespected. But I got over it pretty quickly, and we all moved on, so no problem at all.
That shows the character of you as well. That's great. Now, this next segment this one's called Big Failures and What You've Learned. Now, do you remember the first big failure you experienced? How did that make you feel, and how did you get past those failures?
Oh, look, there's always a time. I remember being in the Italia under-16 team. I was the worst player in the best team in the state, and 9 of my teammates went off to the state trials. They were all invited, and I was the only one that didn't get invited. So that probably really spurred me on. I had a bit of a growth spurt. We worked extremely hard, and by the time the state team was getting selected, I was unfortunate just to miss out. I'd improved that much. So just learned, about maturing, understanding the game, just taking your time and really taking the ups and downs. And I think that's one of the things that Josh has been able to handle pretty well is, not making or being selected in sides such as the state Victorian under-16 side and the under-18 teams as a bottom age kid. So, it was arguable whether we should have been selected, but those things I think just make you stronger. You want to work harder and really prove people wrong and, prove that you belong. So that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned and tried to pass on to Josh.
It's really good. And this next segment, one of my favourites this one is called Starstruck Celebrities. Now, throughout your stellar basketball career, who sort of left you starstruck and why? What sort of famous, maybe a sports person or not even a sports person that you've met along the way?
Oh, look, obviously Mum and Dad were very inspirational. And they were both very, very sporty. No really higher achievements. Dad played a lot of different sports. But, I grew up idolising rugby league players, a bloke called Stephen Edge, Brett Kenny, who were rugby league players for Parramatta. Stephen Edge also dual captain for St George and Parramatta. Winning premierships. And then when I got into the basketball, Gordy McLeod, the Illawarra Hawks captain, was really an inspiration for me. Love watching him play, hard on the sleeve, gave 100%, basically had to be carried off at the end of games. So watching him and just the effort that he put in, I sort of wanted to be like him one day. And, obviously had other role models coming through, Julius Erving, Larry Bird, when I used to watch the NBA as a young kid. So a lot of different role models, obviously starting rugby league, but eventually going to basketball. And then obviously MJ is the ultimate one.
So you haven't sort of been able to get to meet like a Michael Jordan or any of those guys throughout your career?
Oh, look, I've been fortunate enough to play with a lot of blokes who've gone on to be superstars in different football codes. Probably the biggest superstar, maybe I've played against a few back in college when we played there. But no, unfortunately, never got to meet Michael. I probably should have went and visited my good mate Luke Longley while he was at Chicago, but unfortunately never got round to it. And met Dennis Rodman when he came out to Australia to make his tour, and obviously met Shaquille O'Neal.
What's he like as a bloke? Because you hear some interesting stories about Dennis.
Yeah, look, Dennis, he didn't really spend a lot of time with him. He did a one-man show, and we got sort of 5 or 10 minutes with him. And different sort of character, and really strange cat, but deep down, pretty good bloke. Did you watch the Last Dance documentary that with Rodman and Jordan and that as well? Yeah. That was fantastic, wasn't it? Love that documentary.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing the way Dennis was portrayed and some of the stories about him as well, and how he went out and had that sort of those couple of big nights, and then came back a couple of days later. It's like, where's Dennis been? And then he went out and just played like nothing had happened.
Well, and as Luke Longley would say, you would have no idea. And some of the stories he's been able to tell me off the record have been amazing. And as I said, he was really good mates with Dennis. He was a bit of a minder for him, so I tried to look after him and, get him on the, straight and narrow in a sense. But Luke was really good mates with him. And as I said, Dennis was a weird cat, worked in mysterious ways, but what he did on the court was just absolutely fantastic. And, he helped that side to win 3 championships.
And this next segment is called Words of Wisdom. Who's been the biggest influence on your basketball career and why?
Probably mum and dad. Just give me the opportunity. I moved in from a small town of Coldcliff into North Wollongong when I went into year 7 with a family, and that was really to give us a greater opportunity with the sporting endeavours to be around basketball. So from an early age, they really encouraged me. They took me everywhere, whether it was rugby league, cricket, surf life saving, and then obviously basketball. So they were probably just an inspiration, keep me on track, get me there. Obviously making rep teams, different things evolved throughout my career, and being able to go to the Institute of Sport was probably one of the biggest springboards to being able to play a longevity in the NBL. So I'd have to say mum and dad, especially just the opportunities that they afforded me as a young kid.
And going forward now, we spoke about this off air, are you going to America soon to see Josh play, which is wonderful, but are you sort of still involved with basketball as a coach, or, going forward, do you have aspirations of being an NBL coach or assistant coach, or...?
Yeah, look, I think the time's passed me now to be an NBL coach. I did 10 years as an assistant with Al Westover and obviously Lindsay Gaze at first, and probably missed the boat, unfortunately, of becoming a head coach. And I'm heading off here to the States, obviously, in a week or so. I've coached the Melbourne Tigers juniors for the last 20 years. I've been the St Kevin's College senior men's coach there for the last 10, 11 years. So I've had to relinquish a few of those coaching roles, unfortunately, just due to the fact that I'm going to be out of the country. But I've got both daughters, Neve and Ella, playing with the Melbourne Tigers under 18s and under 16s. So I've coached both of them throughout their career. My oldest daughter, Hannah's at Oral Roberts University, which is 90 minutes up the road from Oklahoma. So I'll get to see her when I go over there. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to put a stop to the coaching just for the year. But, I love it. I'm passionate about it. And really, I just love helping out young kids and coaching, girls and boys, and especially my own 2 kids or own 4 kids. Love coaching them with the Tigers and trying to help out where I can.
In the next sort of couple of months, so you mentioned before that you're going over to OKC to watch Josh play. For the people that are listening and watching today, tell us what's happening over there, Waz.
Yeah, looking forward to getting over there. I'll arrive for their game against the LA Lakers on the 10th in OKC. So looking forward to seeing the great man LeBron. Hopefully he plays his time. He hasn't played the first 2 games. And I'm sure Josh is looking forward to stepping on the court with him too. Hopefully they're bunnies at the moment, but obviously without LeBron playing, they're going to be a lot better. So I'd expect the Lakers to be tough to beat. But I'll probably get to see about 17 home games over there in a couple of months, and maybe even go on the road for a couple and, to the good areas, maybe New York and LA, and check them out. But really excited just to go over there to check it out, to witness it firsthand, and, to give Josh some support.
Oh, I'm very envious. I've never been to the States before. It's definitely on the bucket list for sure. So to go and see an NBA game would be incredible.
Yeah, definitely. Just for him to play with and against those superstars, he's got most of them up on his bedroom wall. He's got the poster with KD, Steph Curry, LeBron, and a couple of the other superstars there. So from a young age, he's dreamed of playing with and against these guys, and it's just a dream come true for him. He's stepping out in the court against these different superstars night in, night out. So I just said to him, you got the autograph book in your sock, mate, just in case you need to grab a few before the game. But he sort of laughs and, he takes it all in his stride. And he said they've been really nice to him. He said most of the guys have been really accommodating and making sure that he's all right and everything's going good for him.
Oh, that's just fantastic to hear, mate. And so proud, as an Aussie, and so great to see Josh going so well. Awesome, everything you've done for him, and I can just see how happy you are as well. And have a great time over there in America. And let's, I look forward to continuing to watch Josh bloom, and it's just awesome to see.
Yeah, it's been great, Bevo. The Australian public, the Australian media has really just adopted him. And, he's a great kid. I'm going to say that as a dad. But, he's humble. He's very respectful. And, as I said, he's just not getting too big for his boots. And, if he does, he'll cop my size 14 right up the clacker. But it's just great what he's doing. And, as I said, the Australian public can sort of grab onto him and follow him. And, it probably gives inspiration to every 6'8" unathletic white bloke playing basketball in Australia.
What a great story. Well, Wazza Giddey, thanks so much for joining us on Legends with Bevo. It's been an absolute blast and we look forward to speaking again soon, and have a great time over there in the States. Take care.
Thanks, Bevo. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate, and all the best to you guys.